Sorry, Reverend Emilie, your mic is muted. Good morning.
Thank you. It's supposed to automatically unmute me. Thank you, Dr. Ortega. It's happened to me, folks. I know that there are a lot of people out there who have had this experience of being muted. So let me start again and just say, good morning. Welcome, everybody. It is so good to be with you this morning. I am coming to you live. Yes, that's right, live, as always, from the Beacon studio. And our studio, as you can see, is very full this morning. We've got Jamaine Cripe. Jamaine, you want to wave to everybody? And Tuli Patel at Beacon in Summit, New Jersey, although Tuli is behind the scenes, that's right, in the tech room. We've got Wim Sweldens, a Beacon member in Oakland, California, where it's something like 7 a.m. So it was a little darker when he arrived. And then today we're delighted, you've already gotten to meet him a little bit, to welcome Dr. Elías Ortega from Chicago, Illinois. So this morning, Beacon is coast to coast and centered in the heart of America.
Absolutely. It is just so wonderful to join you from Oakland this morning. I'm literally looking at the sunrise over a lemon tree right in front of me. It's such a wonderful experience. We want you all to come out. Please, in the chat, say who you are. Don't hide. Put your name, put who you're watching with, and put where you are watching from so we know that you're there. If you are new, if this is one of your first times to Beacon, a very special, warm welcome to you. We are thrilled to have you. We want to get to know you better. We want to know your story. We would like you to join us in our starting point event. And to do that, simply go to our website, summitbeacon.org, and click on the button that says, I'm new. We'd love to get to know you. Welcome all.
Wim, do you remember your first day at Beacon?
Oh, yes, I do. It's a while ago, but it was December 2004. And our kids were still very young at the time. And we decided to, at the time, check out the Unitarian Church in Summit. And we had no idea what to expect. We both came from a very Catholic sort of traditional upbringing. And we walked in, and believe it or not, it was the Hanging of the Greens service, which I think, for those of you who know it, it is sort of organized pandemonia, organized chaos around the church. So we walked around, we got shipped around, we were singing, kids were doing stuff and running around. I was like, wow, this is a little different. But I remember it all came together in a beautiful moment with everybody actually hanging the greens and singing. And I still get a little teary-eyed thinking about that moment. And we loved it, and we kept coming back.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Ortega, we are delighted to have you with us, and it's been so much fun to introduce you to everybody this morning. For those, go ahead.
I say good morning. It is a pleasure to be here in worship with you this morning.
Yeah, I know that we've been dreaming about this day, you and I, as we've been organizing it. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Ortega is the president of my alma mater, Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of 2 Unitarian Universalist seminaries in the country. And before Meadville grabbed him, he was right here in New Jersey, not that far from Summit. In fact, as I recall, we met on a bench on the Summit Green at a youth conference too many years ago, I can't even remember now, and had one of the best conversations I can remember. So I have to ask you, what's happening at Meadville Lombard for students and for the faculty right now?
So there's a lot of things happening. We are gearing towards commencement. We're graduating 14 students in May 16, and that's going to be streamed live in our Facebook page. So please mark your calendars. 3 p.m. Central Time, so 4 p.m. Eastern. This has been a year, as you can imagine, of many transformation. Right, we're thinking how to navigate pandemic. We started prior to pandemic with a new curriculum that we were implementing that we have to adjust on the fly, right, to meet the new demands. And I think as any moment of crisis is an opportunity, we have also taken some bold steps into the future. And one of the things that I can share, and the news is becoming live this weekend, is that we are moving from our current location to a new location in 180 North Barbara Street. And we're really looking forward to this move. So you are the first congregation to hear it from me publicly. And it's going to be really exciting. It's a new place in which we have access to classrooms, chapel space, meditation, recording studio. So it was a way for us to listen to the need of our students and think how can become a center of ongoing theological learning that happens in the heart of Chicago. So we are really looking forward to that move.
Congratulations. Beacon is in the midst of its own expansion process, and I can tell you those are not easy decisions. And so, congratulations to you. So exciting for Meadville Lombard and for Unitarian Universalism. And as you know, Beacon wants to be a partner with Meadville and Star King in California and with our seminarians, which is why this year we're so delighted that we are going to become a teaching congregation starting in August. For those of you who don't know what a teaching congregation is, it means that we become an internship site for our seminarians. And so due to the generous donor who really believes in the future of Unitarian Universalism and wanted to invest in our seminarians, we are looking forward to welcoming an intern. I got an application this morning and I'm just so excited. But the reason that we wanted to bring you here was to talk to us a little bit about your work leading cultural and institutional changes at the Unitarian Universalist Association, and specifically through a 3-year racial audit that you did of the organization, which resulted in recommendations for equitable practices and policies. And Dr. Ortega, our congregation, our leaders have been reading the report, Widening the Circle of Concern. And it has been, as I've heard you say, such a monumental task over that 3 years as we listen to reports at General Assembly, not simply for the amount of work, but also for all that you witnessed in our congregations due to racism. And so I wanted to take a moment on behalf of everyone at Beacon just to thank you for leading this vital, transformative work. We, as a movement, are going to be so much different and transformed by your work. So thank you, and thank you for sharing it with us today. In this month of healing, it is what we need.
Yes, indeed. I think it's important for us to recognize also, right, the other commissioners. There was a group of 5, at the moment 6 of us working together, and one of the things that we can say that we share collectively during this moment is the need to really think not only of our current practices, but really start thinking on the table to come. Who are the folks around the table that will continue, right, to grow and live into Unitarian Universalism? So thinking about our inheritance today, right, and how do we care for that inheritance so that we can pass it on to the generation that is coming, and really paying attention to the work that we are doing and nurture by that work.
That's right. It's always a much longer line. We inherit from the ancestors and we pass on, right? Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here, Wim. It is so good to have you. And Jamaine, would you lead us in the call to worship?
Absolutely. May is the month of healing at Beacon, and we call our worship into being with words from my absolute favorite science fiction author, Octavia Butler. From her novel, The Parable of the Talents, she says, "To survive, let the past teach you. Past customs, struggles, leaders, and thinkers. Let these help you. Let them inspire you, warn you, give you strength. But beware, God is change. Past is past. What was cannot come again. To survive, know the past. Let it touch you. Then let the past go."
There was a time in my life, thought I had to do it all for myself. Didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. Didn't know the love of God was at hand. Now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you got to let it go, let it all go, and this is what you have to say. I release and I let go, I let the Spirit run
We'll be lighting our candles at home, and you can join us too at your house. We light this chalice for the light of truth and reality, the warmth of love and compassion, and the fire of commitment and promise. We light the symbol of our faith as we gather together.
The Treehouse Rules, a UUA Tapestry of Faith story adapted by Tuli Patel. Once there was a congregation that had a treehouse on its grounds. Families had donated wood and lumber and their time and talent to get it built. Even the kids got involved, especially those aged 10 and up, by pitching in and helping in any way that they could during the construction. And it was a fantastic place to be once it was completed, with a window that faced the nearby playground, a rope ladder to climb up, and a slide to exit. The treehouse had remained empty and unused for over a year during the course of the pandemic. But finally, small groups were gathering once again, safely distanced and with masks on. Sometimes family would watch the service online from their homes and then come to play in the treehouse. While everyone was happy that the treehouse was still there, it soon became a problem. Too many kids wanted to enjoy it at once. It was especially hard in pandemic times to figure out who went first, the youngest, the oldest, the first one there. The younger kids got a thrill out of running races through it while staying at least 3 feet apart with their masks on, hurriedly climbing up the rope ladder, rushing through the treehouse to race down the slide over and over again, one after the other. But the older kids wanted to hang out in the treehouse playing games like jacks and cards. One day, a second grader raced by, interrupting the fifth grader's game of cards for the third time. That was it. A fight broke out with name-calling, pushing, and some tears. Some adults demanded that the treehouse be off-limits until the children learned to cooperate with each other. Other adults protested that their children had special rights to use the treehouse because they had helped to build it. The Lifespan team had meetings by Zoom about a policy for the use of the treehouse. They were getting ready to report to the congregation's board of trustees with their findings. Meanwhile, the staff considered bringing in a consultant from the district to address the trouble. While the adults were arguing, holding virtual meetings, and creating policies, something interesting happened. The children who had been temporarily banned from the treehouse started talking to each other from 3 feet apart, looking for ways that they could all use the playhouse together. A few of them remembered the covenants they had created in Lifespan programs online and in person. They suggested a covenant could be created for how the kids could use the treehouse. So they sat down and talked about why they liked the treehouse and what made it fun. They discovered ways in which they could all enjoy the treehouse in the way they wanted to. They came up with a covenant which laid out how they would be in the treehouse and how they would respect others who were also using the space. They made promises to each other. They were committed to keeping those promises. Just as the adults were starting a congregational meeting online to adopt a policy for use of the treehouse, the parents of the kids who'd worked out the promises told the adults who'd been trying to sort out the issue that the children were cooperating with each other and using the treehouse without conflict. A high school teenager was sent to the treehouse to discover what rules the participants had come up with. And when they reported back to the adults at the congregational meeting, the announcement came that the participants had created a covenant with each other. The adults were humbled. Some sheepishly pulled up their church covenant on their website. The congregational meeting was adjourned. The adults went on their way, reminded of the power of promises, working together to find a solution, and the commitment of people in right relationship with one another, all because of the treehouse rules. Here ends our time for all ages.
Each Sunday at Beacon, we invite you to light the candle of sorrow, joy, grief, and celebration. Maybe you are lighting a candle for acceptance, observation, and inner peace. Maybe you are kindling a light as a blessing for all those who suffer. You are welcome to light a candle in your home. We hope that you will also mention a name in the chat. As we begin the kindling of lights, we draw attention to those who have died from COVID-19, the impact within our Beacon community, as well as across the world. To date, 3,156,005 people have died in the world from COVID-19. At the same time, every week, more people of color suffer and die from police brutality. We hold a moment of silence for these lives. Now, in May, which is the month centered on the theme of healing, we're changing the candle of witness. And instead of focusing on an individual who passed away, we now focus on an individual that is affecting change. Today, I am in Oakland, California, an absolutely wonderful place, but also a city plagued with systemic poverty and with a large number of underprivileged children of color. The person that we're highlighting as a person who is affecting change is Ahmed Mohammed. Ahmed is a senior right here in Oakland Technical High School. His father was a fire captain who served 3 decades in the Oakland Fire Department. Mohammed's mother was an immigrant from Cambodia. They worked hard to build a life to afford him the best, building a small real estate business and showing their son the true value of hard work and dedication. Mohammed, as a senior, is excelling academically. He's a star player on the basketball team, and he served as a tutor and mentor to many elementary and middle school children in the area. On top of all of this, he founded a company called Kids Cubed, a science education company that supplies affordable science kits to thousands of students around the Oakland area. Mohammed said himself, "I'm so happy we were able to create something meaningful before graduating." And this week, it was announced that Mohammed is going to be the first Black valedictorian at Oakland Technical High School. This 18-year-old kid has the highest academic rank in his class and earned an SAT score of 1540. He applied to 11 top universities, many Ivy Leagues across the country, and got accepted and got financial aid from every single one. Soon he will make his choice. The Oakland School Superintendent Kyla Johnson-Trammell said, "We're all so proud of Mohammed. We know our future is in good hands with people like him leading the way." Mohammed himself said, "My father taught me everything that I know. I've learned wisdom, hard work, passion, commitment, and caring. I hope that one day I can be as great a son as he is a father." We light this candle of witness for Ahmed Mohammed. May this ritual of kindling light together offer us purpose in our lives.
I behold. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Thank you so much, Wim. Thank you for bringing us the beauty of Oakland and for giving us a glimpse into the life of Ahmed Muhammad. I give thanks for changemakers like Ahmed and his parents, changemakers who see a new reality and bring it into being. That is what we do here at Beacon. It's funny about change. So often you have to make room in your life, room in our lives for change to happen. It's not unlike the breath. So often when we breathe in meditation, we think about the breath in. Would you take a breath in with me? And then we think about the breath out. But changemakers often reverse that thinking. They make room by breathing out. And then they welcome the new. So let's take some breaths out and in and meditate on the ways in which we need to make room in our personal lives and also make room in our collective lives for the change that we require in order to meet the reality of beloved community. Take a breath with me, breathing out and making room, breathing in and welcoming the new, breathing out and making room, breathing in and welcoming the new. One more time, breathing out. We make room, breathing in. We welcome the new. With each breath that you take, beloved, may our lives welcome in the changes that are required of us. Even though it may be hard to breathe out first, may we make room. Make room for the beloved families that come into our lives, the changes that are required of us. May we make room for all of us. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.
Good morning, Beacon congregation. I hope that you are all well on this Sunday morning. I know that I'm dressed a little casually for a Sunday, but I am recording this on a Saturday, which also happens to be the day of my oldest son's 9th birthday party. So as you can see, I am Team Akani's birthday today. And this is really relevant to why I'm here speaking with you today as the Executive Director of the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance. First of all, I really want to thank you all for your generous donation. And I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about why I do this work and how your donation will be utilized. So right after Akani's first birthday, while we were still living in the city of Newark, he suddenly was having difficulty breathing. Actually, it wasn't sudden. It was an onset of about a day and a half where, I heard him wheezing more and more. And, finally, it just seemed that he was struggling. And I rushed him to the emergency room. And, about 5 hours in, I was told by a doctor after they had put him on a respirator that he had asthma. And I was shocked because no other child in my family has asthma. But today, I'm aware that there are 3 children in my family who have been diagnosed with asthma at some point. And every single one of them lived in Newark, and they lived a block away from each other. 2 of them are my children, and the other is my niece. At that point, fortunately, I had already been organized by folks at Ironbound Community Corporation. And I was aware that we were living along a major truck route. I was aware that we were living in a community with a trash burning incinerator and with several power plants that also emit air pollution. So when my son was diagnosed with asthma, I was really clear that it wasn't genetic, that it was environmental. And that was really when I became serious about my mission to make sure that no other parent would have to suffer the way that I did on that day, that first asthma attack. And it's interesting because he had asthma attacks every year around that same time for several years in a row. This is the first year that he hasn't had an asthma attack before his birthday. And honestly, it's because we live near you now. Nonetheless, it is still my mission to protect and to educate folks in the communities that are most overburdened by pollution. And this is indeed the mission of the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance as well. So, when you give to environmental justice, you are giving to racial justice, you're giving to economic justice, you're giving to immigrant justice, because unfortunately, your race, whether or not you speak English, and your income have everything to do with whether or not you are living in proximity to health harming pollution. This is a reality that we must change. When we make life safer for children in New Jersey's overburdened communities, we make life safer for everyone. Again, thank you so much for your generous donation to New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance. And I hope that you all have a wonderful and marvelous Sunday. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.
across the distance, from the safety of our homes, we come and gather this morning at this time to co-create a sacred community. A community where we are invited to live our lives weaved together by the hope of a covenant that calls each and every one of us to restore ourselves from our journeys. A covenant that calls us to be active repairers of the harms we encounter in the world. A covenant that charges us with the generational task of rebuilding a world shaped by justice. When we come and are gathered in worship, we weave together the strands of our different walks of life, with our different experiences, our multiple perspectives, our agreements, and yes, our disagreements as well. We come to spaces like Beacon, seeking a place of restoration. That is to say that we gathered with a singular hope to live out our commitments of making the beloved community a reality. I want to begin the words that I'm sharing with you with a faith declaration. And while it is true that in the expansive boundaries of the living tradition, we may be wary of bold statements of faith, it is also true that as a religious movement, we have, in the words of religious educator Maria Harris, fashioned ourselves into a particular kind of people. The ways in which we fashion ourselves as a people are clear in how we worship, in our teaching, in what we proclaim we do, and in how we live our lives. As a Unitarian Universalist, we are weaved together by our 7 shared principles. We have fashioned and we refashion ourselves again and again into the kind of people that are moved to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all. We fashion ourselves as a people that understand that we are compelled to live lives fiercely invested in the work of justice, equity, and compassion. We are a people with a shared commitment to promote acceptance of one another, and more than acceptance, a common purpose. A purpose manifested in our encouragement to one another to delve deeper and with curiosity into practices and disciplines of religious and spiritual exploration and growth. We agree to fashion ourselves into a people that is brave enough to guide our conduct in ways that afford each and every one of us the freedom to seek truth and to strive for greater knowledge. This is a high-stakes freedom that we gift each other, and this is possible through our conscious decisions to practice democratic living in our midst. Being fashioned as a people is an ongoing project. We continue in the work of fashioning and refashioning ourselves to live up to the goal of fostering a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all of us and the world. Over the last few weeks, as a nation, we were reminded yet again of the justice work ahead of us. We bore witness to the ingrained anti-Black racism and other forms of oppression that forces us to confront the dynamics that in this country, the color of your skin may well be as well considered a natural cause of death. You see, because in the minutes before and the hours and days after the conclusion of the trial of Minnesota ex-police officer Derek Chauvin, we were reminded again and again as a nation of the deadly consequences of racism. 6 people died at the hands of law enforcement officers 24 hours after the conclusion of Chauvin's trial. According to a report by the New York Times, 3 persons died each day during the duration of the trial. That is 64 people, more than half of which were Black or Latinx. We should consider this reality of anti-Black racism as part of a larger underlying problem that intersects racial violence to other forms of violence. It is imperative that we have a keen awareness that, as reported by various organizations tracking domestic violence every minute of every day, an average of 24 people experience some form of physical or sexual violence by a domestic partner. Yes, you heard me right. Every minute of every day, an average of 24 people experience some form of violence at the hands of a domestic partner. Hunger is another form of violence that is often ignored, and we shouldn't. Because in this country, 1 of every 10 households struggle with food insecurity, and this number goes up to 1 in 8 with children, in the household with children. And if you are Black and a Latinx family, you are 2 times more likely than a white family to go through your daily life with hunger. Whether you're Black, brown, or white, the older you are, the more likely you are to go without enough to eat. The lives of 1 out of 10 adults 60 and over constantly face the threat of hunger. It is mind-boggling that this happens in a country where the estimated food waste may be as high as 40% of the food supply. Think about this level of waste and the economic and environmental impact of producing, shipping, selling, and disposing of 40% of our food supply annually. But this should tell us is that not even the ground upon which we exist is safe from violence. And while it is true that various circumstances surrounds all these happenings, we still need the disciplined attention to ask ourselves a question. How are we to fashion ourselves as the kind of faithful people who take action to not only ameliorate the impact of violence in our world, but to commit to live out our commitments in such a way that this world is transfigured into a just and compassionate one? We need to continue to chart a way in this living tradition that inspire us and those around us to be and do better for the sake and for the wholeness of the world that we are co-constructing. And not only co-constructing, but we need to be mindful and responsible and accountable to the world that we will entrust as inheritance to those who will come after us. It is because of this long-reaching aspiration that I believe that we seek to truly fashion a world where justice is the ground of liberty, and liberty will lead to peaceful coexistence, that we desire to strive higher still. It is because of this aspiration that we should consider ourselves accountable to respect the interdependence web of all that exists and of which we are part of. It is because we strive to fashion ourselves as a people that I believe in the promise of Unitarian Universalism as a faith not for tomorrow, but a faith for today. A promise, as I understand it, to help heal a wounded world. A promise to do the work to live out of our aspirations in faith. I think that drinking deeply from our 6 sources of inspiration and living lives that draw nourishment from our shared 7 principles will go a long way in taking us to where we can, a place where we can be a light and a beacon of faith. That is to say, to live into our commitments. This promise requires that we invest in nurturing our own liberation by taking our faith with the seriousness that it requires in order to be more than a Sunday morning congregational club. As a faith community that lives into our commitments, we should be captivated by the beauty of our faith journey, the theological questions that we face in our individual and collective experience, and the ways in which they push us to come up with solutions for the deeper challenges of our day. As a faith community, if we are earnest in the task of working through our faith and spiritual lives, through the questions and the answers that we give them, then we can reshape and reframe and transform how we understand our place and responsibility in our communities and in the world. And we can do so out of a sense of being called into service. To me, this is at the heart of living into our commitments, to turn ourselves in service to the world. Many of us Unitarian Universalists have an uneasy relationship with theology, and instead we prefer to put a premium on the work that we do without taking stock of why we do the work that we do. And I want to repeat this again. As Unitarian Universalists, it's easy for us to focus on what we do instead of why do we do what we do. We know how we do it, but oftentimes we are not able to speak with clarity about the inspiration that moves each and every one of us to do that work. And yes, we are a community that finds inspiration in doing the works of justice. This was the challenge at the heart of the work of the Commission of Institutional Change. Can we call us in to nurture and cultivate and live out of the theological dimensions of how we extend hospitality to others? How do we demonstrate faithfulness in the ways in which we carry ourselves in our congregation and in the world? My answer to this question was then, and it is today, a resolute yes. Yes, we can both recognize that our collective spiritual journeys gather us from diverse religious paths and life experiences. We have gained religious and spiritual depth through these encounters. In fact, we have enlarged our faith house. Some of these paths have been inspiring, encouraging, and other walks have been painful and scary journey to many of us. I'm going to dare to name that it is likely that the Judeo-Christian tradition was the first home to many of us. It is just as likely that many of us here today have been wounded by aspects of these traditions at one point or another. Healing our spirits is painful and arduous work, but to heal, we have to put in the necessary work. Just like any other injury, ignoring tending to it will not only make it worse, but it will also usher a more arduous journey towards recovery. Whether the culprit was Christianity or another faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to encourage our spiritual growth. We cannot grow in our spiritual lives, and we cannot grow as a faith movement if we approach this sacred work of healing and transformation as being you first faith responders. If we limit the reach of our spiritual community to providing just enough care to stabilize a first emergency and to patch each other just enough so that we can leave the faith emergency room, we have fallen short of the good news of Unitarian Universalism. Living into our commitments, living into the transformative, justice-centric, peace-promoting, life-sustaining faith such as ours, demand for us to speak truthfully from the sources that inspire our work. Such faith is a bold faith. It is a faith that, in the words of Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd, and I'm paraphrasing here, need us to articulate a theology that is deep enough to heal as theodicy, to help us understand how evil, how pain, how suffering, and trauma coexist with the sacred. We need to be able to articulate such a theology, in the words of Nancy MacDonald Ladd, to demonstrate our ability to bring about change in this flawed and broken world. Personally, I say yes to taking seriously responding to those wounded by religious trauma and creating a place of rest, a place of refuge. And beloveds, we should all say yes to live up to the promise of our faith, to dare to heal ourselves and to hold ourselves accountable, to live passionately and with conviction into our commitments. And these commitments are to uphold the worth and dignity of all, to work for the promotion of justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships, to strive for the acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, to uphold the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, to safeguard our right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and in our world, to nurture the goal of community with peace, of work community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, to respect the interdependent web of all existence and of which we are part of. That is to say, to fashion ourselves as a people that live into these commitments in our personal lives, in our congregations, and in the world. And if we do so, we will see the fruits of equity, justice, and compassion. And as I conclude my words to you this morning, I want to do so with a question. As we strive to live into our commitments, what does our faith demand of us?
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear gladness in the air. Over my head, I hear gladness in the air. Over my head, I hear gladness in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear angels in the air. Over my head, I hear angels in the air. Over my head, a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere.
And now that we come to the end of our worship, may we go into the world to live fully and with commitment into those guiding principles that help us to fashion ourselves into the kind of people that are committed to the work of justice, to compassion, and to liberation of our lives and to the healing of the world. May it be so, and blessed be.